It was a quiet Thursday afternoon in late September, the kind of day when the golden light seems to linger just a little longer, as if reluctant to let go of the fading warmth of summer. I had been sitting by the window of my small Vermont cottage, watching the leaves tumble in lazy spirals down to the earth. 11 years had passed since my husband William died, but on days like this, his absence felt as fresh as the crisp autumn air. That morning, I had decided to finally clean out the old guest room, the one I hadn't touched in years. It had been William's study once, filled with his books, sketches, and the faint smell of pipe tobacco. I told myself it was just clutter now, but every time I opened the door, the memories rushed at me like a tide, and I closed it again. But that day, for reasons I couldn't quite explain, I felt ready. I brewed a pot of coffee, tied my hair back, and rolled up the sleeves of my cardigan. The air inside the room was still, as if it had been holding its breath all this time. Dust motes floated lazily in the slanted sunlight. The first thing I noticed was his old drafting table, still littered with pencils and half-finished sketches. I ran my fingers over the wood, tracing grooves that his hands had made over decades of work. I had just started stacking books into boxes when I heard a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I peeked through the window, I saw a man in a blue work shirt standing on the porch, the handyman I had called weeks ago to repair the old radiator. I had forgotten that today was the day he was coming. In my rush to answer the door, I didn't think about the fact that I was still in the thin cotton slip I'd been wearing under my robe while working. My robe, draped over a chair in the guest room, was 2 rooms away. I opened the door without a second thought, only realizing my state when his eyes flicked briefly downward before returning politely to my face. "Oh, I wasn't expecting you so soon," I stammered, pulling the slip tighter around me. "Sorry to surprise you, ma'am," he said with a warm smile. "I can come back later if you'd like." I shook my head, stepping aside to let him in. No, the radiator's been a stubborn one. You might as well get started." As he set down his toolbox and began working, I retreated to the kitchen to compose myself. It wasn't embarrassment so much as the sudden, sharp awareness of how long it had been since I'd had another person in the house, a living presence, moving through the rooms, breaking the quiet that had become my normal. I brought him a cup of coffee, and we began to chat as he worked. His name was Paul, and he'd lived in the next town over for most of his life. He spoke easily, with the kind of voice that carried warmth into the spaces between words. I found myself telling him about the house, how William had built it with his own hands more than 40 years ago, and how each room still held some trace of him. Paul listened without interrupting, glancing up occasionally with an expression that felt more like understanding than politeness. "Sounds like he was quite a man," he said quietly. "He was," I replied. "And I suppose I've been keeping the house the same all these years, maybe as a way to keep him close." The conversation drifted to lighter topics, the stubbornness of old houses, the quirks of Vermont weather, but something about his presence stirred something in me. Not romance exactly, but a reminder of the world beyond my own walls. When the radiator finally hissed back to life, he stood and wiped his hands on a rag. "All set," he said. "It should keep you warm through the winter." I thanked him, and as he packed up, I hesitated. "Would you like another cup of coffee before you go?" He paused, smiled, and nodded. "I'd like that." We sat in the kitchen, steam rising from our mugs, talking about nothing and everything. The kind of conversation that feels unimportant in the moment but stays with you afterward. When he left, the house felt different. Lighter somehow. Later that evening, as I folded laundry, I thought about how strange it was that a simple repair visit could make me feel seen. Not in a physical sense, but as a person. As someone still here, still part of the world. A week later, my phone rang. The number wasn't in my contacts, but I answered. "Hi, this is Paul," the voice said. "Just wanted to check in and see if that radiator's still behaving." "It's perfect," I said, smiling into the phone. "Glad to hear it. I was wondering, maybe we could get coffee sometime, without me having to fix something first." I hesitated for a moment, feeling a warmth spread through me. "I'd like that." And just like that, a door I hadn't realized was closed began to open again. Not to love, necessarily, but to connection. To life. And perhaps, to whatever was meant to come next.